Okay, man. Welcome back, or welcome here if it's your first time. You already know it's that guy, as blue as it gets. Like it or hate it. Back with Giants fandom, man, for the Giants fandom. Those that are out there. And yeah, we're back with a little take on our episode 3 of Hard Knocks off season with the New York Giants, man. First premier season of this, and we are showing up and doing as much as we can with it. Interesting as it's been so far. This episode was a little more lighter on the content for us here. Very short episode in comparisons to the last, it feels like. It was only about 40 minutes. Um, and it was really more about the closure of a lot of things from the previous two episodes, is what we got in episode 3 here, as far as Saquon Barkley and his negotiations with Joe Shane, his agent, and Brian Burns trade discussions, and him coming in finally for the final offer, trade offer that we got him for, and some more on the offensive line around Jermaine Eleanor and Runyon, John Runyon Jr. Yeah, but all of this kind of just compact and squeeze in to the 4 minute episode here, and little discussion around major kind of discussion around the QB position, and our understanding of Daniel Jones here right now, and make sure that we have the proper support around him, and make sure that we're watching for any potential changes that there might be at the position. I guess is how I would say it. Yeah, let's get into it though. The episode itself opened right up pretty much with going back into the negotiations with Saquon Barkley here. If you understand from the last episode that the 12.5 offer is what we got at the end of the previous episode, kind of like a preview into this one. But now that we've gotten the full view of this episode, we understand that the 12.5 number that we was offered, quote unquote, offered from the Giants, wasn't, suffice, and that north of that number is what Saquon signed for. Obviously, this is all passe stuff, right? It's all passes. We're just going over. But yeah, and when I say that the 12.5 number, I'm not even really sure. Just my personal opinion on it now. If that 12.5 offer was even really truly made out there, it was more kind of presented as a if, okay, as if we offer this 12.5 number, are you telling me that, Saquon's going to be back here with the team, 12.5, 3 years, 25 guaranteed would have him here. And from what we kind of were getting from Shane, at least from what he was discussing with the agent, even though we didn't hear the agent himself speaking this time like we had previously, editing rights and everything like that. But you know, we didn't really get that much. But we did understand kind of that the 12.5 number wasn't a definite. It was more, at least for a definite, for the agent to tell Shane that Saquon would be back, right? It was more given to Shane that, yes, the 12.5 offer is kind of what we're hearing around some ways, but that, you have to understand that that 12.5 offer might not be what's get it done, because when you go and you look at that franchise tag number, you're still that with that franchise number. Just because 12.5 is something that you're putting out right now, it's not something that's feeling like it's going to get it done for my client, basically. You know, yeah. So that's what it was, man. So Saquon did actually come back and present, or Saquon, his agent, did actually come back around, after they tested the market a little bit to see where Joe Shane's head was at. Because we understand how the discussion went last time. Shane was acting like, he just was waffling on it. So, they don't, it's not like they're coming together now with a fresh new purview on it, as far as where their negotiating points were at the time. It's just now that we're coming back and we have at least some type of baseline offer for you to kind of maneuver around as a GM of the Giants. So, that's what it really came down to. He signed north of that, of course. Um, if the team was going to offer it or not is a thing. What we will say though, what we did see is that the scouting staff around Joe Shane was in support, from what it seems, and offering Saquon a contract that would be matching to somewhat what the market might have been talking about. How much more, I don't know, but they seem open to the thought of offering him that contract. And Shane once again, man, looked at them like, Okay, guys, like he wasn't necessarily sure. Well, he was more sure that he was out to devalue the position, RB position, period. But he wasn't showing like they were telling him, and he wasn't acting like he was receiving or very receptive of the idea of, hey, man, you might have to think about, that this player here, this talent here is worth the price that he's asking. That's on Joe Shane if he decides to do that or not, and he didn't. So yeah, but I think that closes out the whole Saquon thing. John Mara, his input on it wasn't on the level of some. Nobody's been treated worse because when he says that type of stuff, man, anybody on this team has nobody been treated worse on it. You know what I'm saying? Because we all been losing. They all been losing, catching L's, getting hurt, missing games, not winning, and all this stuff, and being terrible and being talked about and statted about terribly. So like that's meaningless in the words itself, in a lot of ways when we're talking about the playing field and what we're trying to build out here. And he kind of gave the impression of what he understood Saquon was to the team as far as his popularity, um, which is understandable from the owner's point of view. Does that mean he's taking into account of Saquon's value on the field and appreciating that in full? No, not really. But it at least shows that he understands that when you have a player that's like if we're using jersey sales, he was a top selling jersey sale player in the league, man. Top 50 a couple times in there. And you have other players on this team who are supposed to be seen as the leading forces on the offense or as the things that make the offense happen, you know, from the most important positions like quarterback, whose jersey sales don't have never cracked that ever. So, when he speaks of value and popularity and understanding that value, that's where he gets hazy around Mara sometimes, man. He acts like he understands this, but don't want to appreciate it. He understands it when it's making him a dollar sometimes, perhaps, but John Mara ain't always on it. He act like he want to clown sometimes when it comes to paying him, man. And he's not, of course, in control of that. But when you say those things that you said previously in that year, and now you're not as ready, to say them again, it's like, yo, you might as well not have said anything in the first place, man. Really, because Jerry Jones, something like that, Jerry's gonna take his and claim his every time for the most part. Yeah, and I feel like that's more what Mara did last season. Um, yeah, but moving on from that now, 'cause that is closed out. Brian Burns here. We got more discussion on the discussion on the trade value and negotiating with the GM for the Carolina Panthers here, Dan Morgan. These two are good friends, Joe Shane and Dan Morgan, I guess, from their coming up time. So they have a little relationship already, and you hope the GM has good relationships around the league. So when they go out to negotiate trades and free agent signings, players and stuff like that, that they have a good connection. But at the same time, they have to understand that they're not being buddies with their fellow GM mates is not their primary goal. Is that making the franchise they're on the best it can be is their primary objective. So, Joe Shane understood that. I'm sure he practiced that as best as he could, of course. They didn't jump out to two first trade like was first in that first episode or whatever. So he didn't trade him for that, or we didn't trade that away for Burns. And we understood that the value might be like a 1+ anyhow amongst the scouting room, but what we got him for we know was like 2 seconds, and of course the burden or whatever of signing him to a contract. They tried to squeeze out, I guess, the extra seventh at the end of the trade discussions, but Shane didn't give into that, of course, which is good. Probably some like a half a sack and just the play time because Burns is a pretty good player now. He was worth the trade for us and stuff like that. Add him into the defense. But yeah, they were announcing that, comparing him to some players like Rashawn Slater and Montez Sweat from the Washington Commanders, who we might know, who played with Chase Young. And those guys playing for their teams, performing up in those years, and then going on to other teams and getting a payday of some sort. So we understood that we're pretty much in line with the normal is for those guys. So when we bring in Burns in, we have to be ready to pay him as well. And yeah, he signed for a pretty hefty contract, 87 million, 28.5 a year, something like that, 165 total. So he's going to be here, well paid, and everything like that. And now we're at that phase. We're past that. It's closed out, along with Saquon not being here. And now we're all about that playing the field. So we're hoping that him, Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence, who they discussed about, can really um, be a magnet and our defense to bring on the pressure so that our secondary can form even better. And if our secondary can be together and out there doing their thing in coverage, that turns into more sacks for those guys up front and the linebacking core, of course. Um, yeah, so that was good news there. Shane Bowen again, we got kind of affirming that Brian Burns would be a good addition to the lineup, and how you could see him being an impact player and being able to do a lot of things in the scheme of what we have going to be effective. So yeah, Brian Burns is a positive add for us, and it was not a nice production by HBO Hard Knocks, just with their graphs and things like that, showing the navigating pricing of Brian Burns along the way. And guys like Jermaine Amanor and John Runyon Jr., with their balancing of the books and the competition between other franchises as we're trying to sign these guys. We're in a little battle with the Jets for a few of these guys. Um, and yeah, so it was cool to see them, choose a position, whatever you pay the positions, but seeing the numbers rise, fall, a movement here, sealing the deal for someone like Runyon, who was sealed basically because we matched the other team's offer by giving him the 17 million guaranteed in his first year. I guess what it turned out to be, and yeah, for Runyon. And that was interesting to see. Cool stuff. Same thing for Lela Minor a little bit, whose side of his thing was more, making sure that he would come in and get a good chunk of his pay most immediately, is what it turned out to be for him, because he hasn't had any guarantees into the next year from this contract, even though he's here for about 7 million a year for 2 years. There's no guarantees in this next year. So he's navigating as he chooses to along the way here, probably leaving himself open to go on somewhere else with a better deal, perhaps, or if the team decides to go a different direction from him, he's not hampering the team with a longer contract, perhaps, something like that. So he's working with the team and franchise in that, which is cool. Um, Also, that was all pretty much day one of the free agency stuff as it kicked off. A lot of the stuff was, sealed out along with Barkley and things like that, perhaps a little later. But like Burns trade and Eleanor and Runyon coming here were pretty much signed deals. They were looking at a lot of guys. Devin Singletary, of course, came in as well. Um, it's kind of weird with the discussions around the RB position sometimes, because they talk about the age and the 28-year-old thing and them declining, and we let Saquon go because he was coming upon that age, perhaps, and asking too much. And then they bring in Devin Singletary, who's asking whatever, but it's facing that same ageism that they kind of have around the RB position. So it's interesting, what is a player supposed to be at one level, another player's at another level? If he's supposed to slip from where he's at, does this player slip from where he's at as well? Where do you place him after that? It's silly. It's silly. So you got to respect the talent. You got to appreciate the talent and appreciate the value of the talent. And sometimes it's all that matters when the talent is out there and being able to do their thing when it comes into the impact of them contributing their all. It's not going to really change that. If they're paid poorly, it changes that probably. But if they're paid well, it doesn't really change that. You see what I'm saying? Um, yeah, so we heard that. Also got a little bit on Xavier McKinney leaving. He left for a really good deal for himself, 17 million a year, which made him the second highest paid safety in the league right now. Coming off a good year, he didn't miss a snap. And after breaking his forearm or something like that, or his wrist, dislocating his wrist, on a little off-field accident, he bounced back from that and had it the next year. He played every snap and was a pretty good player, solid tackler for us, one of our top five tacklers, top three tacklers, perhaps, on the whole team. And yeah, he just goes into the mix of other players that are talented and leave this team, I guess. And the Giants value him at whatever they value him at, and that's what happens most of the time, from Julian Love to Xavier McKinney now. So maybe Tyler Newbin, we can expect him to play up and be a top five safety and then eventually lead. Is pretty much what we should expect for him, I guess. Wow. Yeah. Um, Going on there now in day two was Tyrod discussion, which is really the bigger chunk of this episode, being short, but the bigger emphasis of this episode was Daniel Jones, which is interesting. because much of what they were giving off about Daniel Jones was that Daniel Jones was not looking too good to being on this roster in the next year or so. They were out to replace Daniel Jones pretty much. Confirmation from last episode with them negotiating with the Patriots to possibly move up for Drake May. But what we got as a little surprise, but maybe not surprise because of the talent itself, was that Jaden Daniels was on a to-do list of potential draft, trade up, and draft targets. Now, what does that say about other guys they didn't perhaps trade up for or feel the need to trade up for in the ideal of that, or even select in the idea of that is one thing. But not everybody that was in this draft was somebody they would have thought they were going to be taking in this draft, obviously, as far as quarterbacks. And that probably goes to somebody like a JJ McCarthy right now, who was probably in house for the fandom, a pick that the Giants might make. Me, myself, I felt, only so much about him. But it seems like the team didn't really feel that he was the right fit for here right now. And that goes with a Michael Penix as well. Because even though Michael Penix came in later in, combine pre-draft stuff, hasn't been any footage on the discussions with him at all, or even them discussing him in talks with the scouting department. So we might not get any of that at all, but we might get some of that now, since this next episode, episode 4 here, looks to be kind of focused around the combine draft stage of everything. I'm talking around Daniel because, wow, man, I mean, excuse me, it seemed like they were ready to go a quarterback, but they knew that making that happen, especially trading for somebody like the Washington Commanders to get Jaden Daniels, was going to be a near impossibility, especially being that they were an interdivisional team. So, and the Drake May thing was still even costly by itself, to get there. I'm not going to say that, Malik Neighbors was drafted just because we couldn't do anything else. I don't think it's that either, because they knew that since that wasn't going to happen, that getting DJ more weapons was the move to make, and it was the move to make. And we made that move by getting Malik Neighbors. So now when we see this week 1 stuff, there shouldn't be any idea that Malik Neighbors was brought in here just to be a guy. No, Malik Neighbors is brought in here to push this offense. He's brought in here to be the next 1,000-yard receiver that we've had on the team since OBJ, because it's been far too long since we've had any of that. And if the QB position is not going to be putting that up, there's options at the QB position, because Tyrod Taylor ain't here. He left for like $7 million, to the Jets, and then he was there, seemed to be their QB2 #1 pick too. They wanted him to bring him back, and Dayball was there like, oh, so we're just gonna go with the same, QB room this year, and they're like, yeah. He was like, oh, okay. And so he was only so excited about that, but it seemed like that was the thing they were trying to do. But that didn't work out with Tyrod going to the Jets here. He's played for every team in New York now. But we have Drew Lock here, and Drew Lock is what it is, man. And Tommy DeVito is what it is, man. And if any of them, either of them, get a chance to play this year, we'll have to see. A lot of after that was pretty much close out the stuff. At the end, we just got a little fluff around the media team, introducing the new players like Burns, Elmanor, Runyon, and Drew Lock here. They're cutting their little, TikTok, Instagram stuff. Good vibes though. Good vibes also with Joe Shane, and some time with his family outside of work, and kids and stuff. Talking about dads, kids at high school, at school, they're telling you to do this. But I just told them to trust you. And, it's like, yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, but getting it was cool to see. It was cool to see. Good vibes for him, just like any player on the coaching staff. Seeing good vibes for their family, even seeing the players come in for the media thing, like Devin Singletary, we got to see him with his wife and kids and stuff like that. Um, nice family and stuff like that. So it was cool. But next episode, yes, I think it's gonna be about this whole situation with the QB position, and probably with the whole vibes of these next episodes that there are left are going to be around as far as the discussion with this. I think the Saquon Barkley thing is closed out now. He didn't lie. He came back. They didn't want to pay him. It was north of 12.5. He got that. Boom, bang, bada bing. Brian Burns is here now. We traded. He's here now. That's closed out. Yeah, so all that's left is pretty much Daniel Jones and all this stuff that's left around that. Interesting. This has been your boy though, as blue as it gets, man. Do like, do subscribe, do comment if you feel like it. Thanks you for coming back, or if it's your first time here, welcome here. You know how that goes. Like it or hate it. We just do it how we do it. And yeah, man. All right, yo. Peace.